You're listening to Let's Talk Pricing, your connection to the voices, stories, and strategies shaping the pricing world. Each episode, we go beyond theory into the practical, timely conversations that help you lead with confidence and drive results. Let's start the show.
Very good day, everyone, and welcome to the Let's Talk Pricing podcast. We are the official podcast of the Professional Pricing Society. My name is Kevin Mitchell from PPS, and I'm very excited about today's episode. We are going to be talking with Dr. Michael Wu about becoming an agent of change in the age of artificial intelligence. So we're going to be talking about AI and machine learning and lots of interesting topics there. And a lot of us already know Michael, but for a quick introduction, Dr. Michael Wu is the Chief AI Strategist at Pros. He is a world-leading expert in artificial intelligence and machine learning. He is, among other things, an advisor and lecturer at Cal Berkeley's Extension AI programs. And as part of his studies, he once used machine learning to model the human brain. And also, we're very excited that Dr. Michael Wu is going to be with us at the PPS Profitable Conference in Las Vegas in October. He's going to have a CPP workshop on AI-powered pricing strategy, and he's also going to deliver a keynote address about the rise of intelligent agents and the human skills that will matter the most as AI reshapes pricing management, revenue growth management, sales enablement, and related fields. So a very nice welcome to Dr. Michael Wu. Michael, we are very excited to have you on. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. It's such a pleasure to be in conversation with you, Kevin.
Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate that. And we have a few questions for you. And AI is an area where actually, believe it or not, I should probably hang my head in shame as I say this. But actually, I go to PPS conferences to learn more about AI from experts such as yourself. It's an area that I do not know enough about yet. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot from you. And I know from your work and from being a follower and a big fan of your work as well, that you have described the shift to strategic artificial intelligence, the shift to strategic AI as a revolution in pricing. So, what's the key transformation that's taking place right now in pricing and revenue management and related fields?
Yeah, I think to answer the question, we can just look around and ask us what's happening right now in the world, right? I mean, I think right now we all know the world is a little bit chaotic. And therefore, in terms of business and market, is highly volatile, right? So it changes all the time. And so what that means is that, pricing, what's happening in pricing right now is we're trying to react to that world, right? And the best way to deal with such a highly volatile and crazy, unpredictable world is essentially to do real-time dynamic pricing, right? Okay. So what that really means is that, you have to kind of compute these price, right, in real time. And what that means is there's no more master price list, right? So the price is actually generated at real time, right? Because the minute you produce a price list, right? Because it takes time to actually produce a price list for all the customer and all the different product combination that you have, right? And that takes a long time, right? So, you may do it very fast, or you may have AI help you to do, but that still takes time, right? Even if it's just like, a week or a few days, right? It takes you time to produce that master price list, right? And if the minute you produce that list, right, it's already a few days late, a week late, or a month late, however long it takes you to produce them, right? So to get the real time, like, means right now, right? You have to be able to compute and generate that that price in real time, right? Compute that. So that's why, yeah, we need to kind of move on to this truly real-time dynamic pricing. And I wanted to make a distinction with the the term dynamic pricing as well. Because I think if you very often when you hear real-time dynamic pricing, people say, oh, we do that, What they really meant is that, well, we do dynamic pricing. And dynamic pricing just that like your pricing changes with something, some indicator, some variable on about the market, right? It changes with but it doesn't mean you change with that in real time.
Understood. Yeah. And I like some of the things you said about there about our chaotic, volatile world. And of course, as pricing professionals, we have a lot of externalities that come into play with our decision making, market changes, government changes, macroeconomic changes, customer changes, competitor changes, and things like that. And we have to take all of those into account. And
Exactly.
so speed definitely is a very important variable there. And also, I like how you described that what a lot of people think about dynamic pricing, really, they're just maybe pricing more quickly instead of having that real time dynamic pricing where everything is changing almost in an instant there, which of course would be the goal. So, if that's the goal, if having a more dynamic type of process is our goal, what are the steps that we need to take in order to get to that point?
Yeah. So I think to get to real-time dynamic pricing, right? I think one of the crucial thing that's absolutely necessary is the ability to kind of ingest these real-time predictors, right? I mean, so you need the market condition right now, right? Not a day ago, not an hour ago, right? Right now, right? At this moment, right? So you need to be able to ingest real-time predictors, right? And there are many of them, right? There's so many, I mean, for example, for example, right? If you talk about tariff, right? I mean, it literally could change from 1 hour to the next, right? I mean, it just takes someone to say, okay, I'm going to change the tariff, and that's it, right? It just done, right? And that moment on, it just changed, right? And there's so many of these different predictors about the market conditions, right, in different country and different, different customers and so on. So it really requires you to be able to ingest not only the real time, but ingest many of them, right? So what that means is that you really need a neural network based kind of pricing kind of system, right? You can't use a traditional kind of segmentation based approach because the minute that you get more and more of these predictors in, you will run into data sparsity challenges. I mean, you don't have enough, historical transaction that with all these different data attributes, so you run into data sparsity. So you have to have this what we call segment free approach, to kind of predict willingness to pay price, for the various customer product combination. And neural network has been really effective at doing that.
Understood. Thank you
Yeah.
for the explanation there.
Mm.
And I know because we've been around for, to put it politely, for a little while. And pricing was a very tough job when, as you mentioned a little while ago, when you might issue a price list once a quarter, once every 6 months, once a year. I mean, even that was a
Yeah,
tough
exactly.
job. But when we multiply that with all of the effects that we have going on now, with all of the chaos, with all of the volatility, this really is a very tough, critical job. So, of course, we would encourage everyone to take advantage of all the tools and resources and training and neural networks, as you mentioned, that are available at your fingertips because it is a different race than it used to be. And if your competitors have rocket ships and you have a tricycle, that's not going to work out too well for you in the long run. So you've been a lecturer at Cal Berkeley, and we are very excited that you're going to lead a full day CPP workshop with Professional Pricing Society at PPS Profitable in Las Vegas in October. And I know from your abstract in our brochures that you mentioned several limitations of generative AI. So, what are some of those limitations, and how can business professionals be prepared to cover the limitations within Gen AI?
Yeah, I think well, I mean, there's several, limitations. Like Gen AI is very powerful. You can definitely do a lot of things, but there's also a lot of things that Gen AI cannot do, right? And one challenge that I think most people at least heard about it is definitely the fact that Gen AI will hallucinate, right? They will make up things that that they're not sure of, that or they don't know anything about, right? So basically, they will just create things, right? And that's actually the a feature of Gen AI, right? They are able to kind of generate, right? That's why they call it generative AI. So they generate things, right? So unfortunately, in when the applications of the Gen AI is in what we call a fact-based type of application, where you need the accurate, precise, correct answer, right? Is not very well suited for that. So one is definitely hallucination, and then the second one is really their inability to do with tabular data using language alone. I think that's uh, one thing that Gen AI don't do very well. I mean, because Gen AI typically the foundation that allow them to work so well with languages and images and so on is the fact that in those data type there's a lot of internal correlation by seeing, for example, in the image, it's very prevalent, right? If you see one pixel or a few pixels, right, you immediately know what the neighboring pixel will be, right? They're highly correlated, right? So that's why from seeing a few pixels you could generate the rest of it, right? And same thing with language. If you see a few words, you sort of know, what the neighboring words will be, and you could actually predict what those words will be, right? So, but in tabular data, those correlations are much, much weaker. And by seeing a few data points, right, you can't really predict what the next data points or the neighboring data points will be, right? I mean, it's actually not that easy. I mean, if that were easy, right, then we would be able to predict the stock market with precise accuracy, right? And we know that we're definitely not there yet, right? So and in fact, if you actually try to ask a generative AI to analyze some data, or you give them a data set, right? The first thing they try to do is they will try to write code. They will actually try to, they know that their limitation as a language model, that they cannot deal with tabular data very well. So they will just start by writing code to analyze those. And these codes right now are relatively simple, right? They'll get better, but yeah. So those are, I think, two major limitations of Gen AI. Yeah.
Okay, hey, we are learning lots about Gen AI, about machine learning, and about the pace of business today with Dr. Michael Wu. Michael, I'm looking forward to following up with you more about the hallucinations, about the dichotomy between how Gen AI handles language versus data. But we're going to take a quick break right now for a word from our sponsors. But everyone, if you are interested in what we're talking about today, make sure to take advantage of Dr. Michael Wu's work. But right now, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Let's Talk Pricing with Dr. Michael Wu.
This October 21st through 24th, PPS Profitable in Las Vegas is all about you, the pricing professional ready to navigate today's challenges and lead with confidence. In just 4 days, you'll gain the strategies, tools, and connections to drive margin growth, strengthen your influence, and future-proof your career. Early bird pricing ends September 19th, and our group rates make it easy to bring your whole team so you can cover more ground and return with a shared plan. Make the investment in yourself. Visit pricingsociety.com/PPSLV25 to register.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Let's Talk Pricing podcast. We are talking with Michael Wu about becoming an agent of change in the age of artificial intelligence. And Michael, before the break, you mentioned two specific limitations of generative AI, Gen AI. One is that it will hallucinate. It will kind of be perhaps more creative than we would expect it to be. And the other one was that it can be very efficient at dealing with language, predicting the next word in a sentence, for example, but not so much with data, predicting, the next data point in a series of data points or something like that. So I remember seeing one of your presentations. I can't remember where in the world it was, but you did a great demonstration of an AI hallucination. you took a question from the audience with someone that you were familiar with, and his or her product group had a series of existing products, and AI correctly identified several of these products when you gave it a prompt, but it also invented a few products that did not physically exist yet. So that was quite an eye opener for me when I saw that presentation. But in your view, what are the implications with AI around hallucinations like that?
Yeah, I think with respect to pricing, especially, right? I mean, I think that's a really critical, mission critical function, right? So you can't tolerate, these AI making up a price that's not accurate or so what that means is really that, if you are going to use Gen AI in these type of mission critical systems such as pricing, right? They need to be grounded. Okay, so they need to be grounded with some other technology, right? Some other help, right? They need other technology to help them, right? So, and the best, way to do that is you augment them with, for example, what we talk about, real-time dynamic pricing, neural network pricing, right? So all these are pricing systems that can actually calculate and compute, right, the precise price for each customer product combination, right? So once you know that, right, then you can give those data to the generative AI. Then it can basically present that to you or explain it to you in a way that's that's useful for you, right, in the particular context. So I think that is the best way to do it is to use a combination of Gen AI and these more, I would say, traditional pricing system, right? I mean, these are essentially use them as tools, right, to ground kind of the actual kind of price that these Gen AI might come up with if you don't use them otherwise, right? So yeah.
Understood.
Mhm.
And if you've been around pricing, you probably have seen the example from a little while ago. There was a biology textbook, I think it was about flies or spiders or something like that. And I remember seeing that someone did a PowerPoint presentation with this textbook that cost $23 million because bookseller number one, who is in Seattle, said, "We are the leaders in this field, so we're going to be 2% higher than everybody else." Bookseller number two, who used to have, or probably still does have, chains of bookstores around the country and around the world, said, "We're going to match that price," until it became a stair step when it went all the way up. But of course, one pricing person who was coherent and was awake that day would see that $23 million for a textbook does not make sense. So we do have to have the guardrails, as you mentioned there, to make sure that things stay where we want them to be.
Yeah.
So, also, since this is an area that I need to learn a lot more about, I'm going to ask a couple more things about Gen AI and about predictive models and about so-called intelligent pricing agents. So, can you explain the changes there? And also, can you talk about the important things that we as pricing professionals, that we as revenue managers need to know about AI as we go from these language models to more reasoning models, to large reasoning models?
Yeah, I think that's a distinction that not a lot of people understand. So when you talk about Gen AI, right? I mean, everybody is familiar with ChatGPT, right? These are the large language models. They're really good with research, strategy, communication, right? So it can help you with all those stuff, right? So you can essentially now have an assistant that will help you do market research, right? Analyze data, simple data from the market and like I said before, right? These large language models, even though they are not very good at analyzing data themselves, right? They can actually use a tool, right? They will use, for example, a Python compiler. They will write the Python code. They're very good with language, right? So, and programming language is a language, right? So they will write the code and then, have the code analyze those data, right? And so they will help you create strategies, right? If for whatever condition or market conditions, that you may have. You may need to be very detailed to specify all those market conditions, but it will help you create a pricing strategy, okay, to deal with that condition. And keep in mind, that's, because think about these, right? These language models, they have pretty much read every single textbook about pricing, every single research paper, that's been ever published about pricing, right? So it probably knows all the strategy in the world, right? So if you could describe your condition, what you need, what you're trying to accomplish, right? There is probably some pricing strategy out there that's right for you, right? And these large language model could surface those and bring that to your attention, right? Some of them you may heard of, right? Some of them you may not. And for those you may not, you could just ask them, explain how this strategy works, and you would just tell you how it works, right? So you have this like extremely powerful, smart assistant that can essentially help you do research, create strategy, and also to help you communicate, right? Sometimes when you when you do pricing, one of the critical role of pricing analysts is, they sit cross-functionally within the organization. So there are a lot of these cross-functional communication, right? And the way you communicate to an executive team is not the same as the way you communicate with, for example, a product team or a marketing team or a finance team, right? So you have to have different communication strategy to maybe explain your strategy or your research, right, results, all that. So, and a large language model can help you with all that, So, and but as I said before, right, these large language models, they will hallucinate, right? So they when you actually wanted to do some serious kind of analysis, right, it cannot actually do that very effectively, except it will actually leverage the ability to write code, right? And so recently, I think there's a new kind of essentially generative AI. So these are what we call the large reasoning model, right? So these are LRM, instead of LLM, they're LRM. So the large reasoning models, that is, the difference about them is like, not when you ask them a question, not only do they actually give you the answer, right? They will also reason through it to arrive at that answer. So what that means is that if you use these large reasoning model, they can also help you write code, right? They can help you do analysis, right? So that's like, a lot of the work that I would say a pricing analyst traditional have to do, right? Whether it's research, analysis, strategy, communication, right? Using generative AI, it can help you pretty much do all those things.
One thing that I find interesting is, in a lot of ways, the AI revolution kind of seems like the internet squared. And by that, I mean, I remember when the internet was first really starting, and it was described as all of the libraries, all of the information in the world is available to you, but it's thrown on the floor and you have to search through and find it yourself.
That's
But
right.
it seems like now with the AI revolution that all the information is out there, but now it can do a better job of sorting that information, finding the information that you need, so you're not searching through all of the libraries in the world on your floor. You can get focused on the ones that you need for your strategies, for your tactics, for your next steps, and it can help you compare and contrast and pick the right ones for you in a way. So it's interesting how maybe history doesn't repeat itself, but sometimes it does rhyme a little bit, I guess would be one way to say it. The thing about the LRMs, the large reasoning models there, and how they can write code and do analysis for you. And ideally, I can certainly see this as a tool that will let pricing professionals focus more on strategy, focus more on perhaps the old Pareto principle, where if 80% of the good stuff of your profit and your margins come from 20% of your offerings, and you can concentrate on those and have these AI assistants do a lot of work on the other 80% that might be 20% of your end product there. So it's a very interesting revolution, as you say it, that we're going through right now.
Yeah, totally. And I think, you mentioned that, now that the RM can help you write code, right? You can focus on strategy. but the LLM can also help you do strategy, right? So
Right.
the large language model can help you do so. Remember, they read every research paper on strategy, how to, and textbook about pricing out there, right? So it can really help you do a lot of your work, really, and make you a much more productive pricing analyst.
And we are going to take another break for some messaging from our sponsors. But when we come back, we are going to talk even more about what it takes to lead in a world of intelligent systems. We're going to talk about and strengthening the human skills that AI cannot replace with Dr. Michael Wu. The Let's Talk Pricing podcast will be right back after these messages. Thank you.
We're heading to Las Vegas this October 21st through 24th for PPS Profitable, pricing's preeminent conference. 4 days of bold strategies, practical tools, and real-world solutions to help you boost margins, lead with confidence, and accelerate your career. Connect with pricing leaders, sharpen your skills, and leave ready to make an immediate impact. Secure your spot and take advantage of early bird pricing through September 19th now at pricingsociety.com/PPSLV25. All right, let's get back to the show.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Pricing. We're talking with Dr. Michael Wu about becoming an agent of change in the age of artificial intelligence. We've had a great discussion where we talked about Gen AI, we talked about large reasoning models, we talked about how we can overcome some of the limitations of artificial intelligence. And Michael, we have a few more questions here. So as AI is going to take over a lot of the routine work in a lot of our jobs and in a lot of our organizations. How do human roles evolve in pricing? Where's the place for the human being with our gray matter up here? What is our role going to be in this going forward?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, right? I mean, I think it is a little bit scary to think about how much that AI can do today. Right? So, and I think, I think the best way to think about this, right, is to think that, if you hire a stellar employee, right, and one day he or she learn to do everything that you do and maybe to do it better than you, what do? Right? What would you do? I mean, a good manager, a good boss, good leader will promote them, right?
Absolutely.
You promote them, right? So, and I think that's exactly what should happen, right? You're basically, human pricing professionals will essentially evolve their role, right, to be a much more strategic role, right? You'll be managing, a lot more things, right? It could be people or a bunch of AI systems, right? Or even a bunch of AI agents, right? You may have a agent that help you do pricing in a particular area, right? Or maybe a particular type of product, a particular type of packaging of product, right? Or, yeah, so you have different agents, different people, right? So you be a manager, right, to make sure that they actually work together well to achieve the goal, right? And you'll be aligning these, different AI systems and people with the moral and ethical standard, right? For example, AI is sometimes highly controversial. You need to be responsible on how you price, right? And you need to make sure that you are compliant to whatever domain you're in, because every single company has pricing. I say because every single company has some product or services that they would sell, right? Every company would need to put some price price tag on those product and services, right? So, but every company in every different industry, right, have different regulations, right? And so you need to make sure that these AI or people or AI agents, right, are compliant and aligned to the standard, the moral standard, ethical standard of whichever country that you may be in.
Yes, and I can see that as kind of a quantum physics type of a leap where you go from A to B, but really you might not exist any place in between A and B along that journey. And of course, we all know within pricing that change management is always very important. And you talked about this a little bit earlier as well, but how we use language with the different groups, even the internal groups that we have to deal with as pricing leaders, as pricing managers, as pricing directors, that can be very different. For example, how we would talk about a price change to a 25-year sales veteran would be different than how we would talk about it with a brand new finance MBA from a top school, and that would be different from how we would talk about it with our C-suite or our senior managers.
Totally.
Different groups, all in the same company, but those have to be three very, very different discussions. And of course, we have to influence without authority, up, down, and sideways, along with all of that. So I can certainly see some of the strategic elements and some of the change management elements in this quantum shift that might be happening there. So tell us about some of the other mindset shifts that might need to happen with us as pricing managers, with our pricing teams, as we move from business intelligence dashboards to predictive to generative AI insights. What are some of the things that we're going to need to change with us as human beings along this journey here in order to continue to thrive?
Yeah, I think, yeah, very good question. I think, most of us probably have heard the phrase that, AI will replace you, but some other human using AI will, right? So
Right.
that's the mindset that we have to really truly internalize. And what does that actually mean? What does that actually mean? So as we already kind of, discussed on the question before, right? Like to some extent, right, holding on tightly to what you do, right, will actually sometimes make you more replaceable, right? You need to essentially allow, allow your role to kind of shift and evolve into this more strategic role, right? Even though it may be very different from what you actually. And I think that, in the pricing world, I'm as most of you probably know that I don't have a pricing background, right? I'm an AI machine learning guy coming to the pricing world, right? And I've learned over time, over the years, I've learned that, like pricing people are a little bit, they like to be in control of things, right? They like to do things that are, and sometimes that actually could almost, I would say, hinder you from moving on to something more strategic, right? If I just want to do my calculation all by myself, and I want to know exactly what's going on, exactly which calculation is being made to make this change of price, right? So so if you are so tied to it, so you want to be in control so much that you would not let the AI take over those calculation, right? Then you be doing all that yourself, right? And very, very often is that like if you keep doing that yourself, right, then someone who's using AI who could do that much faster, right? And maybe even not as good as you are, right? But they could do it so much faster and they could iterate much faster, right? So even though they may not do it as good as you are in one pass, if they do it in like 5 pass or 10 pass, right? It's 10 iteration, right? They could still be better than you, right? Those people who use AI, who could, do this much faster, iterate much faster, will replace you, right? So to some extent, right, the mindset change that we must have is we must learn to trust AI as in some way cede control to AI and let AI help you. We could see this in just in business in general, right? I mean, the best leaders are not the one who kind of do everything themselves, right? They actually delegate, right, to the appropriate people, and that's why they become leader, right? So I think that's the exact same mindset that pricing professionals need to have.
Of course, got it.
Mhm.
And you're 100% correct that speed is a big currency within pricing. And if you hang around PPS conferences enough, you will hear someone eventually say that a really good price right now might be better than the optimum price 2 weeks down the road. So speed certainly has a big value to our customers, to our marketplaces there. Speed is a very big customer. And I know I've talked with people who've done win-loss analysis, and they found that the speed of getting a quote is one of the biggest factors, and sometimes even bigger than whether or not the price was high or low, was how quickly you were able to respond there. So, of course, we can use AI agents and the things that we're talking about today to become quicker, to become more reactive with our challenges and with our opportunities there, because speed definitely matters. So that's very interesting. So appreciate the information there. So we have quite a few challenges now, and for pricing people, there are going to be things that we, as the nexus of a lot of different functions within our organizations, need to do to strengthen. And one of the things that you mentioned was that pricing as a job certainly will change with these new tools. And we might be looking at using our strategic insights to have more commercial influence within our organizations. So, what's something that a pricing professional can do right now to kind of strengthen that Venn diagram, overlap that connection between their pricing knowledge and between their commercial influence, whether it be with sales, with senior management, with finance or marketing or product management, all of these other fields that come into play that kind of touch pricing as well? What can we do to get better at strengthening those connections?
Yeah, I think there's, a couple of things, right? I mean, I think one is definitely be relevant, right? And be relevant meaning you have to literally adapt as quickly as the market is changing, right? So, and as I said before, right, the best way to do that is to allow AI to help you, because AI will always be faster than us, than me for sure.
Mhm.
And then the other way that AI can help you there is, it's also be relevant, but be relevant in the way you communicate, right? As we mentioned before, the way you talk to, sales team, it's not the same as you talk to a finance team, right? Or a product team, or right. So you want and you need to essentially have different communication strategy with these different teams, right? And previously, because it just takes you so much time to just come up with a communication plan, that you just have one version, and you just kind of expect people to kind of understand you, right? And be supportive of your strategy, right? But now, because you have generative AI, you could create these communication plans so quickly, so fast, right? You can literally create, one for each department that you need to talk to, and still have extra time left over, right? So that's why I think it's crucial, as I said before, right? That mindset change, right? You need to learn to trust AI, let AI help you, right? Cede control, relinquish some control, right? Not all control, right? But you need to at some point relinquish some control, cede control to these AI systems. Yeah.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much for the explanation there. So, as human beings, I know that there are quite a few things, and we've talked about some of them already. What are some of the other strengths that we as human beings can bring to pricing and revenue management that AI is not going to be able to replace? What are some things that we are still better at than the tools, than the models, than Gen AI at doing within our fields?
Yeah, I think there certainly, this space is definitely shrinking. So far, I would say like creative problem solving is still, the domain of that we do better, humans do better, right? And I think, and probably one thing that is not going to be easily replaced by AI is the human connection, right? How do you talk to your colleague, right, and your customers, or so all that communication, right, maybe education, right, and teaching people like what you're making them understand your strategy, right? So that required to some extent, not just the information, right, is how you present it, how you kind of uh, help them understand, right, kind of guide them, right, on this journey to understand your strategy. And so that human connection, right, probably is very hard to be replaced, right? And yeah, but I also think that this really, is, don't see this as a threat, like kind of, I think this is actually an opportunity. In fact, I think pricer can actually make themselves indispensable, right? Today by being that perfect kind of change agent for the inevitable future, right, of AI that will come, right? We all know that sometime in the future, right, everything in a company, in an organization will have AI, to be augmented by AI. AI today is just like computers 50 years ago, right? Imagine what would the world be, right? 50 years ago, right? And there's like, oh, computers are gonna take my job and everything, right? But it will take some job, right? But the thing is like every company will adopt computer, right? To help them, do all kinds of stuff, right? So this future of AI everywhere in the company will come. It will come, right? So every company will have to kind of adapt to this, to this future, right? There's no like escape from this, right? Every company will have to learn to use AI in everything they do, right? So, and I think that pricers actually are in this perfect kind of position to actually help this company move on to this future, right? Because this future is inevitable, right? And every company have to move there. And if you make yourself the agent that could help them get to that future, you are indispensable, right? You are completely indispensable, right? Let me turn the question back to you, Kevin, right? And understand like why pricing analysts and pricing professional are the perfect people for this job, right? I mean, so what are I would say, I would say the strength, right? That or kind of quality of a good pricing profession. Like, let me ask you that question. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great question. Pricing professionals have to be able to influence without authority in a lot of cases. And also, we have a job that is often, in spite of its importance, it's often underappreciated, undercompensated, undertrained. But in spite of all of that, we basically are the nexus for everything that goes to a company's profits, margins, to the bottom line. I say every dollar, euro, yen, won, whatever your currency is, it comes into your organization, has a pricing decision attached to it. It's a tough job, a very important job, and one that often a lot of people think that they can do better than you do it themselves. But it really is a case where some of the things that you mentioned that we as human beings have that AI can't replace, such as a creative problem solving, such as game theory, such as that human connection, such as having all of these different languages. And I don't mean actual languages, I mean the language you would talk to a sales veteran versus a finance person versus a senior manager versus a product manager, and so on and so forth. We have the ability to educate people, to correct when necessary, when we can find deals and say, this deal was great, and I know you got a big bonus because of it. But if we replicated this deal 1,000 times, we would lose jobs. So we can't do that. We have to be able to deliver those messages. We have to be change agents. We have to be change management specialists, artists, and scientists, and all of the above. So I do agree with you. Can be a little bit scary. But hey, I'm sure a couple hundred years ago, typewriters were scary. If you were a scribe, it just changes it. It will change the job. As you mentioned, computers change jobs. The internet changed jobs. AI is going to change jobs. A few years ago, we heard that every company is a software company, whether they know it or not. And according to our guests on the Let's Talk Pricing podcast today, every company is an AI company right now, whether they know it or not. It is coming. It is not going to stop. And so we have to be in a place where we can deal with these new tools, where we as pricing professionals can use the influencing without authority, the skills, the strategies, the tactics that we have in order to be good at our jobs. And so, yeah, I agree with you. In a lot of cases, we are really well placed to take advantage of these tools, to have them be a way for us to elevate our strategic thinking and to really strengthen our performance, to move more quickly, to move better in a lot of cases as well. So, yeah, I agree with the statement there. And also, I think that as a pricing person, And as someone who deals with thousands of great pricing revenue managers from around the world, a lot of us do have a lot of those human elements that you talked about that will enable us to use this as we should as a tool in order to do our jobs even better.
Yeah, totally. And I think like all the quality that you mentioned that makes a great, pricing professionals, right, is precisely what's needed, right, to evolve a company from its current state to this inevitable future that will come, right? So pricing professionals are actually, if you are, willing to kind of change, of course, that change in mindset is crucial, right? You need to essentially let AI help you, right? Cede a little control to AI and to elevate your role, right? Then you can actually make yourself completely indispensable in this world of AI
Yeah,
pricing.
absolutely. And I think about pricing people, think of the changes that we've been through. Not, I wouldn't even say in the last decade, and less than that. As we were talking about earlier, it may have been standard operating procedure for a lot of company to have one price list once a quarter, if they were advanced, once every 6 months, once a year, or whatever. But during the COVID pandemic, when we had the extra pressure on our supply chains, when we had inflation creeping into parts of the world where we are not used to inflation, that got thrown out of the window. We adjusted quickly. We used all of these elements that we're talking about in order to move our companies forward and to continue to thrive and do better and exceed our expectations there. So this is going to be the next big change.
Totally. Yeah.
All right. So Dr. Michael Wu, Michael, thank you so much for our conversation today. Learned a lot, and thank you for helping us better understand what's coming with Gen AI, with LRMs, the continuing LLMs, and so much more. Definitely learned a lot today. And for those of us who joined us for the Let's Talk Pricing podcast, Michael Wu has a lot more to teach us, so make sure to check out his sessions at PPS Profitable. We'll be in Las Vegas from October 21st to 24th. Michael, I'm looking forward to seeing you there, of course. And for our listeners out there, you can visit pricingsociety.com to check out our information about our upcoming events in Las Vegas and Barcelona, also our online training and our other offerings there. And we will see everyone next time on the Let's Talk Pricing podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.